Welcome, everyone, to this moment in the middle of our day when we will gather here to hear, see, touch sacred wisdom through the art of storytelling. We welcome into this preaching space Karen Duhai, who will graduate in May with a Master of Divinity, if all goes to plan, and then remain to work on finish her Master of Arts, taking deeper into herself and into the world her reflective theological thoughts. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join in the call to worship. Oh, how our lives are full of family. Aunts, uncles, siblings, those who have gone before us and those who are yet to come. I can see my line if I look back, my line of all who have given me life and purpose. If I look back, I can see all who have given me my name. God of the long lineage, link us to one another. Tie us with satin cords that do not impinge, but that connect, support, set free. Let us sing together.
An account of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham.
When he was about to enter Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai, "I know well that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared on your account. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw the woman was very beautiful. When the officials of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt well with Abram, and he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female slaves, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister,' so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and be gone."
Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob.
So he went into his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, so that you may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" He answered, "Because the Lord your God granted me success." Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob went up to his father Isaac, who felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. He said, "Are you really my son Esau?" He answered, "I am."
And Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar.
In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Judah's daughter, died. When Judah's time of mourning was over, he went up to Timnah, to his sheep shearers, he and his friend Hira, the Adullamite. When Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep," she put off her widow's garments, put on a veil, wrapped herself up, and sat down at the entrance of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. She saw that Shelah was grown up, yet she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a prostitute, for she had covered her face. He went over to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come in to you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me that you may come in to me?" He answered, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And she said, "Only if you give me a pledge until you send it." He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" She replied, "Your signet and your cord and the staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she got up and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the whore. Moreover, she is pregnant as a result of whoredom." And Judah said, "Bring her out, let her be burned." As she was being brought out, he sent word to her father-in-law, "It was the owner of these who made me pregnant." And she said, "Take note, please, whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff." Then Judah acknowledged them and said, "She is more in the right than I, since I did not give her my son Shelah." and he did not lie with her again.
And Perez, the father of Hezron, and Hezron, the father of Aram, and Aram, the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab, the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon, the father of Salmon, and Salmon, the father of Boaz, by Rahab.
Then Joshua, son of Nun, sent 2 men secretly from Shittim as spies, saying, "Go, view the land, especially Jericho." So they went and entered the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab, and spent the night there. The king of Jericho was told, "Some Israelites have come here tonight to search out the land." Then the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, "Bring out the men who have come to you, who entered your house, for they have come only to search out the whole land." But the woman took the 2 men and hid them. Then she said, "True, the men came to me, but I did not know where they came from. And when it was time to close the gate at dark, the men went out. Where the men went, I do not know. Pursue them quickly, for you can overtake them." She had, however, brought them up to the roof and hidden them with the stalks of flax that she had laid out on the roof. So the men pursued them on the way to the Jordan as far as the fords. As soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut.
And Boaz, the father of Obed, by Ruth.
Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These 2 Moabite, the name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. When they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, so that the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and given them food. So she set out from the place where she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud. They said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight and bear sons, would you then wait until they were grown? Would you then refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me." Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her.
And Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of King David. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah.
It happened late one afternoon, when David rose from his couch and was walking about on the roof of the king's house, that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. David sent someone to inquire about the woman. It was reported, "This is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite." So David sent messengers to get her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. Now she was purifying herself after her period. Then she returned to her house. The woman conceived, and she sent and told David, "I am pregnant."
And Solomon, the father of Rehoboam.
So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the 3rd day, as the king had said. "Come to me again the 3rd day." The king answered the people harshly. He disregarded the advice that the older men had given him and spoke to them according to the advice of the young men. "My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions.
And Rehoboam, the father of Abijah, and Abijah, the father of Asaph, and Asaph, the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat, the father of Joram.
When Jehoram had ascended the throne of his father and was established, he put all his brothers to the sword, and also some of the officials of Israel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. He walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, yet the Lord would not destroy the house of David, because of the covenant that he had made with David, and since he had promised to give a lamp to him and to his descendants forever.
And Joram, the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah, the father of Jotham, and Jotham, the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz, the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah, the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh, the father of Amos, and Amos, the father of Josiah, and Josiah, the father of Jeconiah, and his brothers, at the time of the deportation to Babylon. And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel, Shealtiel the father of Zerubbabel, Zerubbabel the father of Abiud, Abiud the father of Eliakim, Eliakim the father of Azor, Azor the father of Zadok, Zadok the father of Akim, Akim the father of Eliud, Eliud the father of Eleazar, Eleazar the father of Mathan, Mathan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Messiah, 14 generations.
From Luke's Gospel, chapter 14, verses 25 through 27. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple."
Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
My grandfather could call the cows to him. He would stand on the edge of the deck in the waning twilight, a cigarette dangling listlessly from his tar-stained ancient fingers, and call out into a seemingly empty field, "Ah, mi amah." He would pause, letting the words drop into the field, and then call again. And before long, a herd of black dots would drip over the edge of the horizon, oozing down over the straw hill and stumbling to a halt in front of him. They stared at him with a kind of stupid awe, mouths moving continuously, always chewing. My grandfather prized obedience, and so he taught those around him to come when he called. He would stand at the bottom level of his 3-story farmhouse and holler up the stairs, usually for my grandmother or myself. It didn't matter what you were doing. He would call me out of homework, play, the bathroom. It didn't matter. Whatever he wanted, whether a glass of water or to tell you, "Love you," he wanted it now. My grandfather and his pickup truck both seemed to be about 100 years old, though he was probably only around 60 during the time when I lived with him, and his truck was probably a few years younger than that. The truck was an odd, dull green, a cross between the color of military camo and algae. I could never tell if it had come that color or if it had been beaten into that shade by years of farm work. It was rusting away in parts, and the bedgate remained down permanently. The inside of the cab was always filthy, littered with half a toolbox's worth of hammers and half a case of beer. Oddly, it never seemed to get more or less dirty, but rather it remained in a constant state of filth, as though it had been preserved as a museum exhibit of local country life. My grandfather was an alcoholic. And with years of practice, I could pick out the distinct rattle of his truck coming down the road when it was still a good mile off. It was important in those years to have ample time to hide, because my grandfather's drunken moods could range from aggressively loving to angrily belittling. Neither was good. He was a product of a time and a lifestyle in which men were regarded as more valuable than women, and he had no hesitation about sharing that view with me. I learned as a child that I could not cure my grandfather's alcoholism, but I could avoid being a victim of its symptoms by making myself invisible. My grandfather's knees were bowed and creaky from years of abuse, and so it was highly unlikely that he would look far or wide for me. The only time he did climb the 2 flights of stairs to search for me, I pretended to be in a sleep so deep I could have given a Disney princess a run for her money. But not every situation could be cured with a well-timed, if fake, nap. There were times when answering his call was unavoidable. Sometimes he called me downstairs so that he could list my many faults. Other times he called me downstairs just to get him a snack or a glass of water. He called me Pop's girl. Genealogies. Our family trees. They're just lists, aren't they? The names of our ancestors, divorces, marriages, births, and deaths. They are the statistics that on paper make up who we are. They are a quick overview, a light history. And yet for many of us, our families' histories have a heavy impact on who we are. Because underneath those statistics are stories of people, real people, people with unique personalities and deep flaws, people who have passed down more than a distinct profile or a particular skin tone, people who have shared with us not only their genes, their sense of humor, their family recipes, but also their wounds, their prejudices, and their sins. Every family has secrets, stories or scars that we try to hide or hide from. Every family. Liars, murderers, prostitutes, adulterers, rapists, manipulators, thieves. Those are just some of the members of Jesus's family tree. And those are just the more notorious ones. It turns out that the Son of God carries as much baggage in the branches of his family tree as the rest of us. And yet nothing from his past prohibited from being the Christ that we know. What Jesus teaches us through his very complicated and very human genealogy is that our genealogies do not define or confine us. The Bible, after all, is not a story about bloodlines. It's a story about faith lines. We are not obligated to carry with us the burdens of the previous generations. In fact, Jesus tells us not to. When Jesus said, "Hate your family," I don't think he truly meant that we must abhor those who have known and loved us from birth. I think what he meant is that God has known us and loved us from before birth. Our Creator, who formed us in the womb, knows who we truly are and calls us to be that person. We are called to go where God sends us and to do the work for which God has equipped us, and we must let go of the influences and ideas that would stand in the way of God's calling. And yet, many of us, myself included, have struggled to let go of the life and legacies they have always known. We are creatures of habit. It is far easier to cling to the life we have learned is normal than to open ourselves to something new. And it is far easier to listen to the voices that you have always heard, those of our friends and family, than to seek out the voice of God. Too often, we allow the influences and intentions of our family trees to navigate the course of our lives, for better or for worse. We allow others to tell us who we are, and their opinions and suggestions cloud our brains, fogging out the image of our true selves. And what exactly does God call us to do with our true selves? God calls us to go and make disciples of all the nations. Simple enough. But what does that mean? When Jesus created the first disciples, he called them friends, and in a very real sense, they became a new sort of family. They lived and they worked together, and when Jesus died, it was not Jesus' family tree, but rather his disciples that carried on his legacy to the future generations. By calling those first disciples, Jesus created a new sort of genealogy, one based not on blood or family obligation or racial purity, but one based on faith, hope, and love. This is God's genealogy. After all, we are all God's children and are therefore truly brothers and sisters. And we have seen through Jesus' own bloodline that our sins and shortcomings do not exclude us from God's work in the world. If we view our genealogies then through God's expansive, inclusive lens, then the branches of our family trees expand and open outward to include all of the brothers and sisters with whom we have built relationships over the years. We are no longer bound to ties formed by our DNA, but can include all of those who have touched our lives. The theologians who formed our thoughts and beliefs. The brothers and sisters whose differences of thought or lifestyle have challenged and expanded our own worldviews. The teachers who have taught us to reach for our full potential. The employees who have pushed us to do more than we thought was capable. The friends who have held our hands through the struggles, and the acquaintances who have held us accountable. When we see our genealogies this way, as creations of our faith journey and not our family journey, then when we look backwards, we see perhaps not our grandparents and great-grandparents, but those persons who helped us to come to know our true selves as created by God. And when we look forward, the possibilities are as plentiful as the souls on this earth and those yet to come. It is a tree that will not die when our bloodline dies out. And it is not bound together by the shackles built from the pain of the past. It is tied with the light, expansive cords of love, the love of our God, and the love we are called to bear one another as disciples of Christ, as friends, as brothers and sisters. My grandfather did not live to see the woman I have become. And I don't know if he could ever have accepted me as I am. When I met him, he was already being crushed. Under the weight of addiction. And so, in a very real sense, neither one of us got to see the other's true self. For years, the pain inflicted by this broken relationship has kept me small and quiet. But just as my spiritual family, my extended genealogy has helped me to claim my voice and my passion and myself, I have come to reclaim my grandfather, not as an alcoholic, but as a child of God. He was a man who others knew as incredibly stubborn, but also uncommonly generous. And he was fiercely loyal. He was a man who got lost, whose true self was hidden beneath a weight that I could not possibly lift. To become our true selves is a process, brothers and sisters. And that process requires us to let go of that which keeps us bound, hand and foot. We are not meant to be crushed under the weight of our family trees, nor are we meant to be enslaved by the obligations, opinions, or imperfections of others. The ties that bind us together should be the ties of friendship, ties built out of faith, hope, and mutual love. And when God calls us, we do not have to hide out of fear of what will come or shame for who we are not. because God calls us only to be ourselves, our true selves, wonderfully, beautifully, intricately, and awesomely made. Amen. Who would have thought preaching about the genealogies would be so hard? Brothers and sisters, my friends, each and every one of you has woven your way into my own spiritual genealogy in a beautiful and unique way. You have challenged my assumptions about myself and the world. You have given me space to explore, to grow, and occasionally to fail. And you have called my attention to the God-given gifts that you have seen in me. And for that, and the love that you have borne me on this journey, I give you thanks. As we go from this place, I'd like to give you the opportunity to reflect upon your own spiritual journeys. Who are the people who have influenced your life and your faith? Whose wisdom and insight has helped to call you to your true self? Attached to this tree are gold ties. As you reflect on your personal genealogy, I invite you to come forward and remove a tie from the tree. But these are not for you to keep. As you leave this place, I'd ask that you give your tie to someone who is a part of your spiritual genealogy. Give it to a brother or a sister in this room, to a professor, a student, or send it to a friend with a note of thanks for their part in your life. Let us be blessed by the ties that bind us together. the ties that bind us together be loose enough that you may go freely where God sends you, but tight enough that you know you never go alone. For we are one body, one family, walking in one light. Amen.